This year's national theme for Women's History Month is Educating and Inspiring Women. It's a powerful reminder for how far we've come, and yet how much possibility still lies ahead when women are fully equipped, encouraged, and empowered. Education and inspiration are not abstract concepts. They are tangible forces that change lives. When women are educated, formally, informally, in classrooms, in communities, or in workplaces, they gain tools to navigate systems, they make informed decisions, and they can shape the world around them. When women are inspired by role models, by mentors, by each other, they recognize the strength that they've always had, and they can begin to lead with it. At the Fairfax County Commission for Women, we believe that education and inspiration must be ongoing, intentional, and inclusive. Our mission is to advocate for the equality of women and girls across Fairfax County, not just in theory, but in practice. That means uplifting the voices of survivors. It means shining a light on the disparities in economic opportunity, representation, and safety. It means building a bridge between government, community partners, and the women we serve. We are proud to be entering a new chapter in the Commission. In 2024, we released our Gains, Gaps, and Goals study, which offered a powerful snapshot of the status of women and girls across Fairfax County. It made clear both how far we've come and how much work remains. Thanks to a generous grant from the Department of Family Services, we are now finalizing a strategic plan that will guide our efforts for the next several years. As we move forward, we are listening deeply to what women in Fairfax County truly need and deserve, because meaningful policy must be grounded in lived experience. Our goal is to ensure that the Commission not only remains a voice for advocacy, but also a lasting source of education, inspiration, and impact. As chair of the Commission, I'm proud of the work that we've done, but I'm even more excited by all the work that is still ahead. Our goal is not only to respond to the moment that we're in, but to help shape the future that we know is possible. A future where every woman and girl in Fairfax County can thrive, lead, and be seen. Today, we gather to celebrate the stories of women who have paved the way and to uplift the voices that are building what comes next. Whether you're an advocate, an educator, a student, a policymaker, or someone who simply believes in equity, you are a part of that story. And while today we're here to celebrate women's history and progress, we know that true gender equity can't be achieved by women alone. It requires partnership. It requires men standing beside women, not just in words, but in action. When men and women work together as allies, as co-creators, and as champions of equity, we can create a future that is brighter for everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for believing in the power of women, and thank you of being a part of our ongoing work to educate, inspire, and lead. Together, we are writing the next chapter of progress. With that said, it's my pleasure to welcome the Fairfax NAACP First Vice President, Evelyn Spain. Evelyn, thank you so much for your leadership and standing with us in this important celebration. Thank you all.
Well, good morning, everyone. You all look amazing. And this beautiful that I have been to in quite some time. I'm so impressed. The blossoms, the cherry blossoms came out just for us, I'm sure. So thank you for being here. Like the chairwoman said, I am Evelyn Spain. I have to put on my glasses. First Vice President of Fairfax County NAACP. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this extraordinary event, Moving Forward Together, Women Educating and Inspiring Generations. We are truly honored to collaborate with the Women's Commission on this day dedicated to commemorating the remarkable contributions throughout history that women have made. Before I begin, I'd like to give a big hand to the caterer for this delicious breakfast that's been prepared for us, to the Riverview team of this lovely facility, and of course, Channel 16. Where would we be without them? It is truly an honor, as I said before, to be present to share the stage with the Fairfax Women's Commission. We, Fairfax County NAACP are in total alignment with the agenda, which is to promote gender equality, eliminate violence against women, and to, most of all, honor women and girls in Fairfax County. The Fairfax County NAACP is committed to advocating marginalized community members whose voices often go unheard. But today, I would like to highlight an important aspect of Rosa Parks, and you're all familiar with Rosa Parks. So let me just start. I'm a daughter of a teacher, so we give a little history. We always talk. My daughter can attest to that. Well, while she is renowned for her courageous efforts of refusing to give up her seat on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, I want to point out it's vital to know and remember her involvement in the broader activism, particularly in combating sexual violence and advocating for women's rights. One significant yet lesser-known event in her activism involved Mrs. Racy Taylor, a 24-year-old woman who was brutally raped by 6 white men in Avonville, Alabama in 1944. Rosa Parks played a pivotal role in rallying support for Mrs. Taylor, refusing to let grand juries' inactions silence her. This led to the formation of the Equal Justice for Mrs. Racy Taylor campaign, which eventually evolved into a national organization in November of 1944. The NAACP has long supported women facing domestic violence, promoting those whose voices are not often heard in the distance. And we are so very proud, once again, to let you know that we are honored to be a co-sponsor in this event. Today, I want to emphasize that Fairfax NAACP believes in the power of education. Ms. Jessica Berg. As a child of an extraordinary educator who went all the way from the Jim Crow era to being a PhD before she passed away, I was taught the importance of having role models, how it's important not to quiet the imagination and concerns of young people, but yet to feed their thirst for knowledge. So I leave you with a powerful quote from Malala Yousafzai. We have one child, you have one teacher, you have one book, and one pen can change the world. So today I can attest, today's program will leave an indelible impression of wonderful efforts of teachers, of officials, of commissioners that are doing the great support of our diverse community. Thank you for showing your support for donating feminine products to the county's initiative. Thank you once again, I cannot thank you enough, Fairfax County Women's Commission, for the opportunity to co-sponsor this fantastic Women's History event, moving forward together, educating women and inspiring generations. Thank you most of all to Ms. Jessica Berg for being an inspiration and making such a tremendous impact on our future generations. And with that, get ready for a phenomenal program. Thank you again for being here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sabrina Rose Smith. I'm the Mason District Representative for the Commission for Women and Chair of the Women's History Month Committee. And I'm going to lead everyone this morning in a little networking activity to get to know the people at your table and also get you thinking about those women in your lives who have done things that have inspired you. So mentors and teachers, people who have been powerful educators and led to those moments where your mind expands. So I'm going to ask, you'll notice that there are pins on your table as well as Post-it notes. I'm going to ask that you raise your hand as I ask these questions and keep a tally of the number of times you can raise your hand, because we're going to give a little prize to everyone the person at the table who has the highest number. So we're all in the honor system here, but I want you to make a little note so that you can keep track of how many of these you can answer. All right, are you all ready? Okay, I'm going to give you a minute. Okay, so as we get started, again, I'll just remind you to raise your hand if you can answer a question, and you may share the answer with others at the table. And if you can't answer a question, then keep your hand down and only mark a point for yourself if you can answer the question. So we'll start with this, an easy one for this esteemed audience. Who here has served on a commission, council, or board? Who here has volunteered with a community group or other organization that centers or directly assists women and girls? Who here has ever been inspired by a woman educator when you were in school? Now, raise your hand again if that woman educator taught in one of our nation's public schools. Who here has had a powerful woman mentor in their lives? Who here can name a movie or a TV show that featured a woman educator as the main character? I'm sad to report that there are fewer hands. We got to do something about that. Who here remembers Anne Sullivan and what she was famous for? At the end, I'll tell you all, for those of you who can't remember. Who remembers Emma Willard and what she was famous for? Who here knows who Mary Bethune is and what she is famous for? Who here can name at least 3 women's colleges in the U.S.? All right, so I want to give you a minute to tally those up, and I have a couple of tiebreakers in case there are ties at the table. All right, so now that we have tallied up the number, I will give you the answers for these women educators. Anne Sullivan was Helen Keller's teacher, and she reimagined and redefined special education. Emma Willard was an advocate for women's education and founder of the first higher education institution for women in the United States. Mary Bethune, among the many things that she is famous for, was for founding a school for black girls in Florida and later a school for nurses that became the Bethune-Cookman College. All right, do we have any tables where there's a tie? Okay, so here are the tiebreakers. The first of those tiebreakers is who can name the oldest chartered women's college in Virginia, which also happens to be my alma mater. It's Hollins University, my undergraduate school. That may or may not have been how that made it into the program. And do we need to break any more ties? Okay. Who can name any of the teachers or former teachers on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors? There are 2, at least by counting, and I apologize if I leave out a supervisor. I went by the bios on the website. Kathy Smith of Sully District, who taught in elementary school, and Dahlia Palchik in Providence District, who taught world languages. All right, so what I'm going to do is, if there's still a tie, come see me. I may have presents for everybody. But what I'm going to do is I am going to ask that the winner just sort of hang tight, because I have these lovely little gifts over in the corner, and I will make sure to pass them around to the winner at the table. Right now, though, I'm going to invite Anjali Ramsey, who's the representative from Braddock District, who's going to introduce our keynote speaker, Jessica Berg.
All right, good morning. My name is Anjali Ramsey, and I represent the Braddock District for the Fairfax County Women's Commission. It's funny because just as I was walking up here, I deleted the notes that I was going to have to introduce. introduce Jessica. However, I have a backup, so all is well. But it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Jessica Berg. Jessica Berg was born in Loudoun County, Virginia, and she was raised by the most inspiring woman in her life, her mother, Maureen, who is also here in attendance with us this morning. Jessica earned degrees from the University of Virginia and George Mason University. She is currently in her 14th year of teaching in Loudoun County. During this time, Jessica founded the Miss Phoenix organization in 2016 to empower women to use their voice, and from this organization, Jessica was inspired to write curriculum for her Women and Gender Studies course. This course has been expanded into more than half a dozen high schools in Loudoun County, and she is looking to take it statewide. For the past 6 years, Jessica has organized and hosted the annual Rise 2 Summit, which brings together advocates, leaders, organizers, elected officials, and organizations to inspire our young women to believe they can make a difference. All proceeds go to the Women and Gender Studies Scholarship, which has awarded 7 scholarships. In 2020, Jessica was awarded a Virginia Congressional Commendation for her work in education and the community. And in 2021, she was honored with the Rising Feminist Award, given by Virginia's chapter of the National Organization for Women. In 2023, she was honored as one of Loudoun's 40 under 40 for her advocacy and activism. In her time as a teacher, Jessica has also been an outspoken advocate against book bans, penning articles and testifying in front of the Congressional Oversight and Reform Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties regarding book bans and academic free speech. All of this work is possible because Jessica has an amazing partner in her husband, Dave, with whom she is raising 2 extraordinary daughters, Harper and Bailey. So with that said, I welcome to the stage Ms. Jessica Berg.
All right, I'm going to raise the mic a notch. I'm tall. Thank you all so very much for having me here today. I am so incredibly honored to be here speaking with you all in Women's History Month and by the Fairfax Commission on Women. It is such a privilege. So the first thing that happens when you ask a teacher to come be your keynote speaker is you're going to get a little quiz. So on your table, you'll note a little Women's History Month quiz. So this is something I do with my students and with teachers when I do professional development sessions. So basically, if you take a look on the left-hand side, those are men from history. I want you to rank them 0 to 3, how well you know this person. 0, I have never heard of this person before. 1, yeah, that name rings a bell. 2, okay, I can tell you what they're known for. And 3, oh my goodness, I've been learning about this person since first grade. Then for the right-hand column, do the same thing. Those are our women. Let's total the scores and see what we get. So take a minute. And I promise you, as I tell my students when I do this every year, I'm not picking the most random women to trick you all, like as I'll go through some of them. These are pretty foundational, amazing women, and it's just a shame that we do not know who they are. So as you're going through, and as most of you have started to notice, and what I'm going to safely assume, the left-hand column score is far higher than the right-hand column score. So we are here celebrating Women's History Month, yet we don't know much about women in history. And that is actually quite purposeful. As Laurel Thatcher Ulrich said in 1976, the absence of women in history is man-made. Yeah. 41 years later, in 2017, this was reiterated when the National Women's History Museum did a study of every K through 12 history curriculum across the United States and found that for the 737 named historical figures, only 178 were women, 1 woman for every 3 men. and that's K through 12, an entire public education history curriculum. 1 woman for every 3 men. What I love most about that study, and you can find it on the National Women in History Museum website, is that they broke it down even more. Of those 178 women, 63% were white women, and there were 0 named women from the AAPI community, 0. And of that 63% of white women, many of them were named multiple times in connection with their husbands. Our first ladies, Martha Washington, Eleanor Roosevelt, Abigail Adams, named not because they did extraordinary things in their own right, which they absolutely did, but because they were married to a man in power. But what I think was most powerful about Abigail Adams was her letter to John while he was attending the Continental Congress in Philadelphia. Some of you might know this one. Long before she was First Lady. In her letter, she famously writes, "I long to hear that you have declared an independence, and I desire you would remember the ladies. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation." John did not listen. And man, can you imagine that dinner when John gets home from the Continental Congress and Abigail's sitting there and is like, so did you do it, John? Did you remember the ladies? And I swear he probably tried to throw like Thomas Jefferson under the bus, like, listen, TJ just started writing, we didn't have time. Then John Hancock signed it and it was so big, so we couldn't add women into our founding documents. John's just really lucky women also didn't have the right to divorce their husbands at that time, or he'd have been searching for another first lady. But that rebellion Abigail spoke of, it was in fact fomented. And we have a memorial right out there to some of these women. But it is unlikely many of them appear in our history classes. Yes, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, but what about Mary McLeod Bethune? What about Lucy Burns and Ida B. Wells and Alice Paul? We aren't familiar with them as we are the founding fathers, and we have to ask ourselves why. On your quiz, I am sure most of you put a 3 next to Henry VIII, yeah? But probably a lower score for Hatshepsut. She was Egypt's second confirmed woman who ruled in her own right in 1479 BC, but her successors tried to actively erase her from the records and monuments because her reign was seen as going against the patriarchal system of her time. Over 3,000 years separate Hatshepsut and Abigail Adams, but they were both fighting against a system where men held all the power. So it makes sense that Hatshepsut's successors tried to minimize her influence. It makes sense that Abigail's letter isn't a foundational text in school curriculum, because if you want to maintain a power structure, you do not want the people being oppressed by it inspired to fight against it. So when I think about today's theme, women educating and inspiring generations, I think about my career as a teacher. And I do believe education and knowledge are power. And as Gerda Lerner, a founder of the academic field of women's history, said, "Women's history is the primary tool for women's emancipation. When we see ourselves in the women who came before us, we can see the influence and power we have to create change." But the problem, as we see in the 2017 National Women's History Museum study, is we are not seeing ourselves represented. And as the adage goes, you can't be what you can't see. And this has real-world ramifications. So there's this term, symbolic annihilation. This is the absence or underrepresentation of groups, often based on their race, gender, orientation, ethnicity, class. And what this lack of representation does is it makes young girls and people from marginalized groups lose their self-efficacy, which is a person's belief in their ability to succeed, the belief that their voice matters. At the time this study came out in 2017, I was having many conversations with students, specifically my young women students, and their reactions to the 2016 election. And there were these questions of why, regardless of party affiliation, the obviously more qualified candidate did not win. I didn't have time to tell them in passing conversations in between classes that 100 years ago, women were not even allowed to cast a ballot, and that the fight alone took over a century. I didn't have the time to delve into the history of misogyny and the rampant sexism that still exists today. I didn't have time to tell them that our societal roles are being ingrained in us long before we are even cognizant these roles exist. I did not have time to tell them that the current system that dictates what they are learning or not learning in school is a part of the very problem they were questioning. I was in my 6th year teaching English, and with all of this swirling around, the tipping point was when I did my own mini study looking at the English curriculum in Loudoun County for grades 9 through 12. At that time, there were 210 texts that were reserved and suggested reading for teachers. Only 60 of those texts were written by women. That's less than 30%. Far fewer written by women of color, and far fewer authors from the LGBTQIA community. So in education, women were less than 30% of the history curriculum and less than 30% of the English curriculum. This is what Nigerian author and feminist Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie refers to as the danger of a single story. In her phenomenal TED Talk, which I encourage you all to watch on the subject, she says, "It is impossible to talk about the single story without talking about power. Stories, how they are told, who tells them, when they are told, how many stories are told, are all really dependent on power." And as I began to understand, our education system, unfortunately, was exacerbating this problem of a single story. When the voices of women writers are silenced or ignored, young women are left silenced or ignored. If the aim of history is to see where we have been before in order to better envision where we are going, we are leaving young women in the dark. And young girls begin to lose their self-efficacy, that belief that their voice matters, as early as 4th grade. My oldest daughter, Harper, will be in 4th grade next year. And when school districts and educators fail to show them examples of female voices in literature or the extensive accomplishments of women throughout history, then we fail to give them a reason to reclaim their voice. As Gloria Steinem wrote, "No wonder studies show that women's intellectual self-esteem tends to go down as years of education goes up. We have been studying our own absence." I knew at that moment something had to change. And I do now 14 years into teaching, still believe education can be that catalyst for change. So I began crafting a course, Women and Gender Studies for high school, and writing the curriculum. This would be a class where we would have the time to delve into those questions my students were asking me, and I didn't have to just answer them in brief moments in between classes. I would be able to give the young women and men a chance to view the world through more than a white male perspective. A course where the ignored and silenced women of literature and history could be given their deserved right to be heard. A course where Afra Ben and Toni Morrison, Polly Murray and Patsy Mink, Bell Hooks and Ida B. Wells would be as well known and revered as their male counterparts. And what I love so much about this course is that I learn something new every single day I am teaching it. My students joke that I go on random tangents and I call them my rabbit holes of knowledge because there are just so many stories we haven't heard and left to uncover. And it's amazing. It's amazing every day to experience these stories. But as one women and gender studies student wrote, men's history is the curriculum. My history is still an elective. Right, yeah, that was like, I put that on my website. I was like, I've got it, that is just, woo, that is too good. Chills me every day. So while in my 7th year of teaching this Women and Gender Studies course and having the curriculum being taught in other high schools in Loudoun, it is still just a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. And in this moment where our rights and civil liberties are eroding, when this administration is actively trying to erase Black people's contributions from history, like I still can't believe that Black Lives Matter Plaza is just, I thought it was an Onion article when I was first seeing the images. I mean, that's just the current state we're living in right now. And this administration literally took the T off of the Stonewall National Monument government site of the LGBT contributions here. So what does that mean for the future legacy of someone like Marsha P. Johnson, a Black transgender woman who was one of the most prominent figures of the gay rights movements of the 60s and 70s and a pivotal figure at the Stonewall riots? She is actively being erased right in front of our eyes. And so what will future generations know of her story? And in fact, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, again, I'm sure most of you put a 3 for Elvis. You know, we just recently had a 2022 movie about him. Well, it was actually Sister Rosetta Tharpe, a queer Black woman from the 1940s, who pioneered that new musical genre. And she is known as the godmother of rock and roll. Before Elvis, before Little Richard, before Chuck Berry. Where's her movie, right? She does make a brief cameo in the Baz Luhrmann movie, but that almost makes it worse because they know who she is, and yet they completely glossed over her contributions. Because knowledge is power, and when we show women all the things they are and they can be, we give them their self-efficacy back. We let them reclaim their voice. And it is in these moments of darkness and doubt when I look to the women of history, their formidable resilience, their passionate resolve to create change. They did not give up. We are empowered women in this room today because we are the inheritors of their legacy, their story, and we have to continue this rebellion that was fomented long ago and make sure that our history is not just an elective, but that it becomes the curriculum for ourselves, for my students, for our children, and for the future, where this country will have finally listened to Abigail Adams and remember the ladies, and that all men and women are created equal. Thank you.
So first, I heard of a word the other day that I really enjoyed, and I'm going to share it with you all because it's appropriate for what we were just hearing. And it was a woman on LinkedIn who said, we have to be done with the micro appreciations, right? So we've all heard of what microaggressions are, but we have to be done with the micro appreciations where somebody does something brave and then after the meeting is over or after the thing has happened, you go to them and you say, thank you, I'm so glad that you said that, right? I'm so glad that you're the one. That's a micro appreciation. Let's all aim for macro appreciations for the women that are standing up and who are leading the way. So I just want to invite Helen Cole, who's the vice chair of the Commission for Women and also the representative for Hunter Mill District, to come up. She is also an educator, and so I want to invite her up because we'd like to take one more moment to honor our keynote speaker here today, and Helen is going to do that for us.
That's my daughter. She has to take a picture. Come here. What you do takes guts, and you persevere. I'm a teacher too, and I teach elementary school, and I like my subjects, all of them. You go on a journey, and it's important because you're making sure that women and girls always will be seen, their vision, their, I don't even know what to say, their purpose will always be important to the world. And so we thank you for your information, which was wonderful. Thank you for being here, and you're absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Come on, it's the job.
Just do it. Just turn around. Thanks.
Excuse me. Do what I was going to do. No, come here. Now I'm going to call them out. Excuse me. I wasn't going to, but I am. Kia and Jay. Who was Artemisia Gentileschi?
What?
Artemisia Gentileschi is one of the women on Jessica's sheet.
I did win the competition.
Okay, who was Artemisia Gentileschi?
That's not the competition. It was the other stuff.
You had that in fifth
Kathy
grade.
Smith and Dahlia Palchik.
I'm not talking about them. That was in your fifth grade curriculum. One of the only women in your fifth grade curriculum when you had a.
We didn't have you as a fifth grade teacher. We had somebody else who talked about men.
Artemisia Gentileschi was a Renaissance artist.
So thank you all. We are going to have Danielle Scherf, who is our newest member of the Commission for Women, who's going to do some acknowledgments. She's our Drainsville representative. And then we will close out with Isla Zhang, who is the student rep on the Commission for Women, who will give closing remarks. And then afterwards, you all are, of course, invited to stay, to mingle, to grab more food or coffee, or to take the opportunity to visit the Turning Point Suffrage Memorial if you haven't had a chance to do that.
Hello, everybody. I'm Danielle Scherf. As Sabrina mentioned, I'm the Drainsville Commissioner. I get to stand here and say some thank yous. And the thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this is that phrase that we all know, that empowered women empower women. And I think that this event exemplifies that. So to that end, let me say thank you formally to our Board of Supervisors for their support, for the Fairfax County CFW, to the NAACP for being our co-event sponsors and for the hard work that you do every day, day in and day out. to Fairfax County DSVS and their team, Alexandra Hernandez, who keeps us all on the straight and narrow, Kendra Lee and Keisha Koch, for their support and their partnership with the CFW and all the heavy lifting that they've done for this event in particular, for the CFW Women's History Month Subcommittee for putting this beautiful breakfast together. That is Maria Montez, Anjali Ramsey, Sabrina Rose Smith, and Isla Zhang. And finally, I just want everybody to look around you, because every woman here is in the process of writing the next chapter of what we will celebrate. Everyone is a mentor, everyone is amplifying a voice, everyone is leading a business, an organization, teaching children, and the needle that we move is heavy. So I want to say we see you, we support you. If there's a way that the Commission for Women can support the work that you're doing, please reach out to us. And give yourselves a round of applause for being here and for going out. I hope this event fortified you, and I'm grateful to have been here and spent the time with you today.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayla Zhang. I'm the student representative for the Fairfax County Commission for Women, and I'm currently a junior at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. So first of all, on the behalf of the Fairfax County Commission for Women, I want to thank you all for coming out to celebrate Women's History Month with us. It's been so amazing to hear from so many incredible women and community leaders. And this year's theme, Women Educating and Inspiring Generations, especially speaks to me. As a student myself, I've seen and experienced firsthand how powerful education can be in empowering and uplifting others. And when I think about women who inspire through education, I think of my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. V. She was so energetic and passionate about science that learning in her classroom felt fun and exciting every day. And I remember how she would teach us her own original songs and chants with matching dance routines to help us memorize the steps of photosynthesis, and how she would take us on scavenger hunts outside to look at different plants and connect with the world around us. But Miss V didn't just teach me about science, she taught me how to be curious, how to be confident, and how to find joy in learning. And her creativity and dedication are a big part of what inspired me to pursue STEM in middle school, high school, and beyond. And just like me, every student carries the impact of an educator who believed in them. And that's why I think the theme of this Women's History Month matters so much. Because when women teach and mentor and lead others, they don't just pass on knowledge, they help build confidence, create opportunities, and inspire future generations. So even though Women's History Month is coming to a close, I hope that we can all continue to remember not only the women who have shaped us in the past, but also the women that we are shaping today and in the future as well. And again, before you head out, we would like to encourage you to visit the Turning Point Suffragist Memorial right outside. Thank you all again for being here, for celebrating with us, and for being a part of this community. Thank you.